Hi, welcome to Powered by Coffee, where we are only powered by the fastest beans. Today I want to talk about learning new tracks, and particularly I'm going to show you how I go about approaching new tracks. And today I'm looking at the Adelaide circuit. I've never driven this track before. It's a brand new release for iRacing. I don't really know much about it except that it's in Australia. Adelaide is sometimes recalled to Radelaide or Satellade. I want to talk about a few things. First thing, if you're using the racing line, I think you shouldn't. And I'll go deep into that. So often I'll see on the Sim Racing Stewards Reddit, people asking, is this move illegal or not? And the whole time I'm just thinking the most illegal thing is that you have the racing line on. Elitism aside, there are good reasons as to why you should not use the racing line. If you're playing iRacing, I'm going to assume that you want to be fast, you want to be competitive, you want to race against other people, you want to be a good driver. And using the racing line hinders that in a lot of ways. So a lot of the justification I see for that at least is, well, it's at least good to learn the track with. Learning a track with the racing line on, it kind of means you're not really learning the track. It means you're learning how to drive to the racing line. Now, I'll give you, I guess, the main example. When you're learning a track, you're going to be wanting to work out where your brake markers are, where your turn-in markers are. If you're using your racing line, you're relying on that racing line to tell you where the braking markers are and where the turning line is, because your braking marker is when the line turns red, and your turning in point is when the line turns. Now, if you're learning a new track, you actually want to be looking at the whole track, taking it all in. You really need to get an in-depth understanding of the track. Now, how do we do that? I'll just show you how I go about it, which is just jumping into Sim, and I'll point out the things that I'm thinking about and looking out for when I'm learning a new track. So once again, never driven this track. I'm in the Skip Barber, which is one of the best cars in iRacing. If you haven't driven it, you definitely should. So, all right, we're in the car. Never driven here before. So, first task is to work out how to get out of the pits. Now, on some tracks, that is actually pretty tricky.
Pit lane speed limit is 40 kilometers per hour.
Okay, good to know. Very slow pit lane here. So, in most tracks, I think all tracks, this blue, I'll get my keyboard out. This blue cone marks where the end of the pit lane is. So you'll actually notice that there is no speed limit here. I wonder if I reverse. I might get a black flag for doing this. Okay. Oh yeah, there we go.
Look out for the pit speed limit.
So the speed limit will end at the green cone there on the left. But once you pass here, you can go full speed. And then once you pass the blue cone, you can enter the track. So first of all, a good marker for where you want to turn is, like where you want to brake and turn, these braking markers. I'll just get the mouse up. So right here, it says 50. And I can tell that the track is turning left. So, because that's 50, I know that the apex is going to be quite close to there, or 50 meters away, right? And I can see it's turning left. And here we go. Now I can see from here, it's a chicane. So I go left, right, then up ahead, I can see the track is turning left. And you'll also notice I'm driving quite slow. Now I don't normally drive this slow, obviously, but you want to drive slow enough that you can make a sudden movement if the track goes in a way that's a bit surprising. So you don't want to be at a speed where you're going to understeer or oversteer. Now you can do that, but you might end up in a wall, basically. So another good indicator, once again, we've got the braking, I'll just reverse up a bit. We've got the braking marker here on the left, and we've got a curb. So seeing this big curb here, I can tell that the turn is turning right. We've got a runoff area, and I can see the apex right there. So this, from here, this looks like it's going to be a 90-degree turn, which I can see on the map that it is. And with 90-degree turns, the racing line is pretty simple. It's about as linear as you can get. Basically want to take the shortest line. from the outside, hit the apex, then back to the outside. Now there are a few things that can change that, but we'll get into that later. Now here I can see the track is turning left, that you could be forgiven if you thought it was turning right, but that's clearly a runoff area. And that's another 90-degree turn. Cool. And once again, got more braking markers. Another, looks like a 90-degree turn. And it is. More braking markers on the left. So, and usually the braking markers are on the outside of the corner. So if the corner's turning right, the braking markers will usually be on the left. Not always, but most of the time. Sometimes they're both. Some tracks, maybe if there's not a wall close to whichever side is relevant, there might be braking markers on the opposite side. But yeah, most of the time, if you're turning right, they'll be on the left. If you're turning left, they'll be on the right. And it looks like another right 90-degree turn. And it is. And then here we can see, obviously we've got a big straight. So at the moment, I'm just focusing on learning which direction the track goes. Now, in a lap or two time, I'll go a bit more into how I would actually approach the corner to go fast. Now, here, this looks like a really fast corner, and it is. Now, I'm going to assume that that's full speed. Should be in this car, should be in most cars. Braking markers on the left, so I know we're turning right, and this looks like, now this looked like it was a 90-degree turn, but it's not. It's actually a hairpin. But because I was going slow enough, I could pull up and not end up in a wall. And yeah, so I've made a note of that. Here we go. And then this looks a bit more of a complex set of corners. So I've got a tight left-hander here. Cool, that shifts out there. Then this corner opens up. That's probably full throttle in this car. And we've got another fairly fast corner. This part of the track is a bit easy because we can actually see the corners, not going blind into them. Now this looks like a tight hairpin. I can already see that the corner is like curving around pretty hard. I haven't actually been looking at a track map this whole time. I'm just kind of taking in what I'm looking at. I normally use a track map to just see where opponents are, especially when I'm pitting. Yeah, and there's the start finish line and there's the pit exit. Okay, so now we're going to go a bit further, and now I think this track is pretty easy to tell which direction it goes. So I'm going to look at a few more things and try to think about how I might take these corners at speed. So from memory, this first one was a chicane. So we're probably going to be able to cut that one a bit. So eventually I will experiment with cutting that curb more and more and more until it gives me an off track or a slowdown. So up here I can see that it's a right hand. Oh, there we go. That took me by surprise. That curb is a big bump in the middle of the road. So the outside of the track, like the edge of the track, might be much closer than the wall would suggest. And that was turn 2, I think. So here we have these cascading right-hand turns. So I've made a couple of notes on corners, but I'm not going to make a mental note on every corner. So that's just going to be too much to remember by the next lap. So I remember from the first lap that this was a long straight with a curve in it, and the curve is probably full throttle. I'm quite comfortable to go full throttle on this one. Okay, not quite full throttle. That was actually pretty close to oversteering there. So here we got, I believe this was a hairpin. Yep. And then we've got like a left-hander that opens up. Yep. So I'm already remembering a lot about this track. Now remember, this one's tighter, and then it's got another left-hander that's quite open, probably full throttle. So there we go. I'm comfortable that I know which direction each corner goes into, and that's really, it's often cited as the most just reason to have a racing line on, to help me learn the track. It really, that should take you less than 5 minutes to learn a track. At least most tracks. It's like maybe not Nordschleife, maybe not the Bend, but Adelaide, it's fine, which is probably a normal-ish length track. Okay. Now I'm going to try and go a bit faster, but still being quite conservative. I don't want to put the car on the wall at the moment. So I'm going to brake at the 100 and just see what that feels like. Okay. So braking at the 100 is way too slow there, which is fine. That's good to know. It's not too late. I'm not in the wall. I don't have to go back out with cold tires. Now remember, this corner had that weird bump there. So what I'll actually do, this will be a bit later on in the session. For now, I'm just going to take the corner from here and sort of mount the curb with my left tire and then turn in. And if that's too unstable, I'll try it fully on the road. But then I will actually experiment with using the whole track. I don't think this will work in this instance. There you go. I know it's a slowdown, so I can't use it. So I already know. Cool, so we know that, so I know how to approach that corner next time. So this was a 90-degree turner, and this is another 90-degree turn. And now I'm starting to also think about what gear I might take them in. So I'm trying out gear 1, which I think could be too short for these corners. Now this is a straight that is potentially full throttle. So now that my tyres should be a bit warmer, I'm going to try it again. Yeah, full throttle on warm tyres, it'll be fine. Alright, I'm going to brake at the 100. 100 seemed kind of about right. It'll probably be a little bit later than that, but it's definitely not going to be the 50. So this corner's full throttle, now I've got to slow down a bit more for that. So that corner's a bit more complex, requires a bit more technique than the 90-degree corners. And here we've got a hairpin. Oh, that's not it yet. Alright. Reminding, there's that little right-hander. And now we've got the hairpin. So I want to apex late and get a good launch off. So I noticed there that I apexed possibly a little bit too early. So I'm going to make a mental note of that. Here, 100 was too early, so I'm going to brake about 75.
0.00. That's your best lap in this session.
I reckon that was still too early. I reckon I can brake later, or at least softer. Brake softer. I broke pretty hard then. So here I'm going to mount this curb a bit. Okay, I broke way too late there. So I kind of broke at the start of that curb. So next lap I'm going to brake a fair bit earlier. And I might change my braking reference. So yeah, so before we were just learning which direction track goes. Now we actually want to start thinking about braking references. I was doing that in turn 1 where I tried the 100 board and then started braking at 75. And I think 75 might be right, but braking very lightly just to balance the car and shift it into that chicane. I'll practice this turn. Now that corner's getting more grip every single lap. So that one's going to be quite comfortable with full throttle once the tyres are properly warm. So this was the hairpin, I believe. Yep. So you can see I'm not even attempting to go fast in that one yet. I just want to know how the corner feels, like what everything looks like, get some more references. Now I'll go through some more visual references once I can think of some clear ones. So remember this corner was probably full throttle, and then there's a big hairpin. I remember last one, I apexed a bit too early. That felt a bit better. So I'll make a mental note that's about right, and then I'll refine it as I become more consistent. So here I'm going to go 75, but brake lightly.
You've just done a 142.54. Good lap. That's your quickest today.
Okay. I cut that curb by quite a bit, and it did give me an off track or a slowdown. So that's interesting to know. Here I was braking at about 75. 175, maybe 100 or 75. That seemed too slow. So 50 was way too late. Well, at the curve it was way too late. So I'll have another look at where the 50 board is next lap. So these right-hand turns are pretty easy to just flow through. Car's going slow enough that you can kind of guess what to do with them. So once again, this long straight. The corner here should be easily full throttle now. This tyres are nice and warm. Still a little drifty. Alright, I'm going to brake around 100. And this was the hairpin, yes. Cool, so 100 is roughly right. This corner should be full throttle. Then this is the kind of the only technical corner. We've got a bit of camber there that's pushing the car to the outside. So notice that. The rest of the track is actually pretty flat. So one thing I'll mention, when you see people discuss the perfect racing lines, or you might see it in a book, or a YouTube video describing the best racing line, those best racing lines only tend to work on completely flat tracks. As soon as there's a bit of camber or elevation change, those textbook perfect lines are no longer perfect. You're gonna have to change it slightly because gravity plays a big part in how to drive a car fast. So camber and elevation changes make a huge difference. So even though I was slow at that corner, I was still like refining my line there through that chicane. So here I'm going to brake before the 50, but pretty close to it. Okay, that was still too late, I think. That braking zone is actually a bit trickier than I initially thought. These corners are quite flowy, and because I said it last lap, because they're so slow, it's kind of easy to gauge what to do with them. So I'm kind of just feeling those ones. I'm not really making too many mental notes. When I'm trying to do really fast lap times, I might analyze them a bit more. Okay, I'm going to brake at 100 again because it felt pretty good last lap. Actually, I broke a bit earlier by instinct. But that felt kind of alright. So full throttle, and then we've got the technical corner here. So I'm just going to talk about this a bit. So first of all, we've got this massive curb on the inside. In this car, I don't think you're going to want to hit that, but you might want to. So that's something I'll try once I'm a bit more comfortable with this corner. Oops. It's fine. The car's fine.
We have damage. The stewards have called us into
Don't do
the
that.
pits for repairs.
I normally don't park a car and reverse into a wall. That's not part of my normal routine when running a track, so don't copy that. We'll get back to that corner. We'll talk about that corner a bit more. So already you'll see that I'll get the mouse. The track is already sloping towards the right a bit. And it's quite subtle here, but you can see that the track is going down. And then around here, it's sloping to the right a bit. So the track is going to try and push the car into this wall here on the right. So, because that is, I'm going to guess it's the hardest corner on the track, you might be able to gain a lot of time there against most drivers. Against most, average-ish drivers. Fast drivers, they'll have that one wrapped up. Against the fast drivers, you'll just be looking for little margins at every corner, not one particular one. But if you can nail that, you're going to be faster than 50%. So once again, all right, now look. All right, so I'm making a mental note of where that curve is. So I'm following the yellow line now. There we go. The yellow line lines up exactly with that one. So right now, I want to work out if these 90-degree turns are first gear or second gear. So I'm going to take this one in second. So this car actually has pretty good torque in second gear. Might be one of those ones that you could do your own preference. There's some corners that sit on that borderline. I usually like to go down gear if I can, because I like the extra engine braking. And also like the extra rotation it gives. I'm going to brake around 100. Alright, so now with that corner, I'm in the stage of refining where my braking marker is. So just then, that corner with the camber, I tested going a bit faster, and the corner does indeed try to push you out into the wall. Alright, so now I'm going to think about a few other things. So I feel like I'm closest maybe with this corner.
135.87, that's your fastest lap.
So I tried braking a bit later, and I feel like that's reasonably fast. Obviously I can go a lot faster, but I feel like that's in the ballpark. Alright, so I think I found a good braking point on that corner, but I could have accelerated earlier. Okay, so I do think I like going first gear in lots of these corners. Maybe not that one. Maybe that one is second gear. Alright, back on this big straight, back straight. So one thing to note is that corner will be sketchy in draft. The car will have a lot less grip. So in that corner, I think the braking mark is right about 100. Alright, so in that corner, because of the camber and how the track kind of wants to pull you into the wall, what the car tends to want to do there is understeer rather than oversteer. At least for my driving style. So what I want to do to help the car turn is trail brake. So what that does in the context of that corner is it puts extra weight on the front tyres, because when you brake the car like leans forward. That was way too late there. Car like leans forward. Yeah, the weight shifts to the front of the car. So there's going to be a lot more weight on the front tyres, and more weight is more grip. So as long as you're not locking up, it's going to be lots more grip. So when I get to that corner, which should be after this hairpin coming up, yeah, if you watch my brake trace. So first of all, here's the hairpin. This will just have a pretty linear brake hard. A little bit of trail braking there. And then this one's going to have a much longer tail. You can see how that brake trace is much longer, and I'm sort of adjusting it. So as I get better at track, I will refine that, and that should be even smoother.
Track temperature's rising. It's now 34 Celsius.
Right. I'm still accelerating there too early. So, because I can't actually see the end of the corner, I'm going to have to make another reference.
You've just done a 37.68.
For when to accelerate out of that corner.
Slower than your best.
So, I'm not sure what I'm going to use on this track yet, but usually I will look at something in the distance on the outside of the corner. So like it might be a tree, or it might be a pole. When that crosses like my sight line, I'll try that as an acceleration point. And if it's not perfect, then I can adjust it so that like, okay, when that pole or tree is a little bit to the right or to the left of like center, that's a good acceleration point. Now I don't have triples and I'm not in a real car, so I can't look physically to the right and see the exit of the corner. So I have to make a different reference. And it's also good to find out these other references for when you're racing, because if there's a car blocking your sight, you won't be able to use your normal reference. So you will need another one. So here we go. So I'm still getting a feel of that corner. Alright, so this corner, this hairpin coming up, I'm going to work out a acceleration reference. So I might use that. Alright, reverse again, try not to crash into the wall.
There's damage.
Your rear wing is damaged. Might have lost some downforce. Watch for oversteer.
Let's just fast forward to when I get to that corner again. Okay, we're back at this corner. So I'm going to look at that break in the wall to be my acceleration point. Okay, it seemed roughly right. Now it's a bit out of tell because my tyres are cold, so it wasn't the best reference. So let's do another lap and try it again. I'll talk through this lap again. Now I'm feeling that chicane become quite intuitive. So I'm not thinking about it now. I'm kind of just refining it. So it's a bit hard to describe what I'm actually thinking there because I'm kind of not thinking. I'm kind of just going with the flow. But these other corners, a lot of these other corners, I'm not at that stage yet. Not at that stage where I can just sort of flow and feel it. So this hairpin coming up, I'm definitely still actively making references in my head. So around the 100 mark. Okay. Acceleration point is pretty easy because I can kind of see the exit there, but it is tight. And this one. So another thing with that corner is that there's, at the moment, I'm assuming there's less grip on entry, and a bunch of grip comes to you after you go to the corner, because just like the topography of that corner. That last one, because I was talking about this other corner, I wasn't actually thinking about that one. Once again, that's why maybe I only focus on one or two things per lap.
35.75. You're currently 0.19 off your best.
So you can see how my delta, most laps, I'm going faster there. Let's get this yellow line. I think I made a new braking marker there. There's actually a white line on the road that ended, and I broke then just where it finished, and it felt pretty good. So. Alright. Okay, important to note, straight wall there. So I was looking to the right, not to the left, and that wall was a bit closer than I thought. So if that becomes a consistent problem, I might have a look at that, but yeah, I'm not too concerned about that right now. Corner's pretty intuitive. Now this one, yeah, there's going to be a lot more grip there because it's not really a compression zone. If you think of turn one at Brands Hatch, when you get to the bottom of the hill, there's a massive compression zone where you get loads of grip right in that spot, and you can do a lot of turning just in there. Now this one's a very subtle version of that. As the track dips away and then levels out again, it's going to be a bit of it's a compression zone where the car bounces, or the car kind of drops into the road and you get a bunch more grip. But until then, you're actually going to lose a lot of grip. So in a corner like this, I'm anticipating, I shouldn't reverse. I might crash again. I'm going to anticipate that what you want to do is actually turn in quite early, because there won't be any grip on this part of the track. So going out wide to then turn and get a better exit won't really work here. What you want to do is you want to kind of rush into that compression zone as soon as you can. Yeah, because to do a lot of turning in this part of the track before the compression zone, you're gonna have to slow the car down a lot to get that turning. So we're actually gonna do most of the turning mid and after the corner. So when I get to speed, I'm gonna look at my rear view mirror very carefully here. Oh God. Need more coffee for that. So my line that I'm going to start trying to do will be something like this. I'm turning in early, and then I'm expecting the grip to come all in this section. That's my initial intuition. I might be wrong, but corners that look like that, it's usually the case. So let's try that next lap with a bit more speed. Alright, chicane, feeling pretty good with. Okay, so I slowed down a bit too much there. It's okay, I'm not trying to be fast now, I'm just trying to get a really good feel of the track. So, I don't know, I'll point it out next lap. Oops. Alright, so right now my focus is that compression zone on that one corner. So we're just going to try to just cruise around the rest of the track basically. And our only goal this lap is that one corner. Just keep it simple. Don't cloud your brain with too much information. Alright, here we go. Yeah, so I think my instincts are right. I'm probably going to get a lot of the turning. Might not go as tight as I did in my previous example, but I'll go pretty tight. Alright, just then I was observing the outside wall where there was that break in the wall. It's actually hard to see the break, but it's easy to see where the colour of the wall changes. It goes from dark red to a light, brighter red.
136.06. That puts you 0.5 off your best.
Alright, so as I get faster, I am eventually going to test out how much I can cut that corner. So, oh, forgot to mention. Before I mentioned that there was a white line that ends and it came out to be a pretty good breaking point. So it's a bit earlier than the 50 board, where this little white line, this dotted line ends. I broke about here and that felt quite good. So I feel like it's further along than 75, might be about 60 meters from the corner. Okay, this corner again. Yeah, okay, so a lot of turning force mid-corner there, not much on the exit. Because that camber does pick up again. Right here we're looking for the colour change in the wall, for the acceleration point. So that felt pretty good. Alright, I'm going to cut this chicane a bit more now. Okay, that was still legal. Interesting. Alright, where this dotted line ends is where I'm going to brake. That might be a second gear corner. Oh. So it's like a series of 1, 2, 3, 4 90-degree right-handers. So I think the inside two will be first gear, the outside two will be second gear. But I do think those are corners where, in this car, you can kind of probably choose, have a preference to which one you want to take. My opinion of that might change once I become faster around here. Breaking 100 meter board. Let's try and do most of the turning in mid corner here. Okay, but because I was focusing on doing the cornering all mid corner there, it was actually quite comfortable. Right here, focusing on the color change. And there I wasn't looking at the wall, I was kind of just noticing, I was still looking forward where I'm going and noticing the color change in my peripheral vision. What I might do now is, I'll just do a couple of laps without commentary and just kind of focus on going fast. So I feel like I'm at that point. You know, it's been 20 laps now with me describing everything, but usually I'd reach this point at, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 laps, where I feel like, okay, I know where the corners are, I know which way the track goes, I know my braking point, I know my turning point. Now I'm just gonna like start driving. And I won't be too concerned about putting a blitzing lap, but I just wanna start putting in laps where I feel like I'm getting towards the limit. And then once I've done that, I basically keep driving, just kind of passively, just getting a feel for the car and track. So I broke too late there. So yeah, once I feel like I'm approaching each corner, I'm somewhere near the limit, what I'll be wanting to do is wait, just keep driving until my lap times become consistent. Because for a little while, you know, could be 10, 20, 30 laps, I will find chunks of time, you know, 2-3 tenths on a single corner. And my lap times will kind of be a little bit all over the place, like probably consistent within a second. What I want to keep doing is keep driving until my lap times are consistent within a tenth or two. And that's when you know you're pretty much on your own limit. And that's when you can start chipping away at all the little bits. A bunch of that is, I find, just track time for me. A bit of passive driving, just going for it and feeling it out.
You've just done a 135.77.
Not thinking about it too much.
Off your best.
All right, so I just spent a bit more time in that session, kind of refining little things. And my best lap was a 133.1. Now I'm going to drive around for a bit and see how many laps it takes me to beat it. And then I'll post that lap for you right now.
That lap was a 133.36. It's your best lap in this session. That lap was a 133.05. That's your best lap in this session.
As you can see on that last lap, I was still gaining quite a bit of time in some sectors and still making a couple of mistakes. But I do feel like that my lap time was kind of in the ballpark of where I should be. Still lots to improve on, but they're all going to be little improvements, and I feel like I know the track quite well now. I feel like I'd be comfortable entering a race in it, and I'd still be improving during that race. Anyway, this has been Powered by Coffee. Currently I'm at 6 subscribers. Please help me get to 7.